Imagine this, a small Catholic parish in Kwara State, Nigeria. Evening Mass has just ended. Children are eating puff-puff and playing football by the gate. Suddenly, one sharp-tongued boy stands up and blurts out what he heard in his parents' room the night before. "Oh yes, don't stop. Break my neck. I will come tomorrow." The courtyard goes silent. His friends froze in confusion. The catechist almost drops his rosary, and by the time the whispers reach Father James, even the priest is clutching his Bible in shock. This story is about Chike, a clever, mischievous boy who was respected by his peers, feared by his parents, and curious enough to spy on what no child should ever see. What exactly did Chike witness behind that bedroom curtain? Why did he drag his sister Amara into something he called Operation Don't Stop? And how did a Catholic priest end up quoting Bible verses to scold not the children, but their parents? Before we dive in, hit that like button if you're ready for shocking truths. Subscribe if you're new to this journey of mystery, suspense, and poetic justice from the heart of Africa. Because what happened next turned a family's private moment into a community scandal. Let's get into it. The Okafors lived in a modest two-room compound house in Kwara State, not far from St. Peter's Catholic Parish. Their lives were ordinary by day. Mr. Okafor ran his small tailoring shop by the roadside. Mama hawked bread and akara at the market, and their children, Chike and Amara, spent mornings at school and evenings chasing lizards across the dusty compound. But at night, the walls of that little house carried secrets the children could not understand. It started one Saturday evening after Rosary. The family ate dinner, iba with okra soup. Then Mama lit a kerosene lamp and sent the children to bed. The zinc roof rattled softly as the harmattan wind passed over. Chike lay on the mat beside his sister, staring at the cracked ceiling, restless. Then it came.
"Oh, yes, don't stop. Break my neck, don't stop."
Chike's eyes widened like lanterns in the dark. He turned to his sister, but Amara was half asleep, rolling on the mat. His curiosity ignited like fire. He pressed his ear against the doorframe, listening as the thumping grew wild, the bed creaking as though possessed. The noises rose, then slowed, then ended in heavy breathing and laughter. After a while, silence returned, leaving only the chirping of crickets outside. The next morning, as the compound stirred awake, neighbors fetching water from the borehole, roosters crowing at the edge of the bush, Chike's mind was still fixed on what he had heard. He waited until Mama was folding laundry in the corner, then marched up with the boldness only a 10-year-old could carry. "Mama," he said, scratching his head, "why do you and Daddy beat drum at night?" The shirt slipped from her hand. "Drum? Which drum?" she asked, forcing a laugh. Chike folded his arms. "I heard you saying, 'Don't stop, break my neck, I will come tomorrow.' Mama, is it masquerade rehearsal?" Mama's cheeks flushed. She bent to pick up the clothes and snapped, "It's only the wind knocking the zinc roof. Now, go and fetch water before I knock your head." But Chike was not convinced. That night, the compound was quieter than usual, as though even the goats and hens sensed something waiting in the dark. The kerosene lamp in the Okafor's sitting room flickered out, and one by one the households around them sank into silence. Chike lay wide awake on the mat beside Amara, his heart thumping faster than the crickets outside. At exactly 10:13 p.m., the first sound came. A giggle, soft at first, then louder. His mother's voice followed, rising through the thin cement wall.
Yes, don't stop.
His ears stood like antennas. He slipped from the mat, tiptoed across the room, and pressed himself behind the faded curtain near his parents' door. Through a tiny crack in the wood, he peeped. What he saw made his jaw fall open. His parents were on the bed, moving as if locked in a strange contest. Chike's eyes stretched wide, his head spinning with shock and wonder. It wasn't drumming, it wasn't fighting, it was something else entirely. His mouth hung open so long he almost coughed, but he clamped a hand over his lips and ran back to the mat, heart hammering like a talking drum. The next day, while Amara combed her doll's tangled hair, he leaned close to her ear. "I found out what they do at night," he whispered. Amara's eyes lit up. "Tell me." Chike grinned. "Mommy and Daddy are playing wrestling, but it looks like dancing and shouting. The bed is even jumping like a goat." Amara gasped and giggled, hiding her face in her doll's wrapper. Chike tapped her shoulder and added, "Should we try it tomorrow night? We'll call it Operation Don't Stop." The children laughed until Mama scolded them for making noise. But in Chike's mind, the plan was already forming. If his parents wanted to hide something, he would uncover it. Because to him, no secret should live behind the wall of their little house. The next night, when their parents' door shut again, the children launched their plan. Chike stood proudly on the mat, shouting, "Don't stop!" before leaping into the air. Amara followed, and together they bounced, shouted, and laughed, copying what they thought they had seen. But their play was clumsy. They slipped, fell, and knocked against the plastic bucket of water in the corner. With a crash, the bucket toppled, spilling water across the floor. The flood spread quickly, soaking their mat and their clothes. Their shouts brought neighbors knocking and Mama rushing in with Papa close behind. There stood Chike and Amara, dripping wet, shrieking with laughter, yelling, "Operation Don't Stop!" The room fell into stunned silence. Mama's face turned red. Papa's mouth hung open, and outside the compound, people murmured in confusion. That night would be remembered for a long time, for it was the moment a private secret spilled into the open, and the Okafors realized their children had seen and heard far more than they ever imagined. The next morning, the compound buzzed like a hive. Children whispered and giggled when they saw Chike and Amara fetching water, and women at the borehole covered their mouths as they traded knowing looks. The story of Operation Don't Stop had already spread, faster than Harmattan fire. By the time evening mass ended at St. Peter's Parish, it was no longer a secret. Some altar boys snickered when Chike passed, and one bold boy shouted across the churchyard, "Tell us again what your mother said last night." The courtyard erupted in laughter. Father James, carrying his Bible, stopped and frowned. "What is this noise about?" he demanded. The boys fell silent, but Chike, still proud of his discovery, stood tall and repeated the words he had first overheard. "Father, my mama was shouting, 'Oh yes, don't stop, break my neck, I will come tomorrow.'" The air grew heavy. The catechist dropped his hymn book. Women gasped, crossing themselves, and Father James's eyes widened in holy alarm. "Where did you hear such words, my son?" he asked gravely. Chike pointed toward the compound without shame. "From my parents' room, Father. Every night the bed is jumping like a goat." Father James closed his eyes briefly, pressing the Bible to his chest as though steadying his heart. Then, after a long pause, he said, "I must speak with your father and mother tonight. By dusk, The Okafor household sat in tense silence as Father James entered, with his cassock swaying and his Bible clutched tightly. Neighbors had gathered outside, pretending to shell ground nuts but listening intently. Father James sat heavily on a wooden chair, cleared his throat, and turned to Mr. and Mrs. Okafor. "My children," he began, "Proverbs 22:6 says, 'Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.' Tell me, is this the training you are giving these ones?" Mr. Okafor lowered his gaze, and Mama's hands trembled in her lap. Father James's voice grew firmer. "Matthew 6:6 warns us, 'When you pray, go into your room, shut the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen.' Privacy is not only for prayer, it is for every sacred act, including marriage. But your children tell the parish that your room is like a market." The parents shifted uncomfortably, and Father James leaned closer, his voice both stern and sorrowful. Ecclesiastes 3:7 reminds us, "There is a time to be silent and a time to speak." My children, there is also a time to lower your volume. The neighbors outside stifled laughter, but the Okafors could not smile. Father James turned to the children. "And you, Cheek, Amara, Hebrews 13:17 teaches us to obey our leaders and submit to their authority. Your parents are the leaders of your home, but instead of closing your eyes to sleep, you are spying and repeating words you do not understand." Chickie swallowed hard, pride shrinking under the priest's steady gaze. The priest stood, resting his hand on the parent's shoulders. "Husband and wife, keep your joy sacred. Children, respect the walls that protect you. Even the sweetest drum must be covered, lest children beat it before their time." With that, he prayed over the family, asking God to restore peace and wisdom before leaving quietly into the night. Inside, the Okafors finally exhaled. Papa drew the children close, his voice softer now. "What you saw is not wrestling, not dancing, not drumming. It is something between husband and wife alone. It is love, and it is private. It is not for children to play or repeat." Mama nodded, adding, "Every joy has its season. When you are grown, you will understand. Until then, respect closed doors." Chike and Amara looked at each other, cheeks burning with embarrassment. They nodded slowly, realizing Operation Don't Stop had ended. From then on, whenever the night drum returned, they hid their giggles under the blanket, never daring to copy it again. The compound slowly moved on, but the lesson remained, etched in their hearts. Children see and hear more than parents think, so parents must guard their privacy, and children must wait for their season. In the weeks that followed Father James's visit, the Okafor compound settled into an uneasy calm. The neighbors, who had once whispered every evening, now returned to their usual gossip about rising Gary prices and whose goat had eaten whose yam. But inside the small two-room house, the air was still thick with lessons not forgotten. Mr. and Mrs. Okafor became more careful, closing their doors softly at night and lowering their voices so that their children would hear only the crickets and the wind. Chike and Amara, though still curious, had been humbled by the priest's words and their parents' stern warning. Yet children remain children, and sometimes their whispers carried the ghost of their old mischief. Lying on the mat, Amara would nudge her brother and giggle, "Do you hear the drum?" And Chike would hush her quickly, remembering Father James's solemn face. At school, when his friends tried to tease him, Chike only shook his head and refused to speak. He had learned that not every discovery was worth sharing, and not every laugh was worth the shame that followed. The story of Operation Don't Stop began to fade like chalk washed away by rain, but in its place grew a quiet respect. That night, when his parents closed their door and the walls of the compound grew still, he lay on the mat and pulled the thin blanket over his sister's shoulder. "Let us sleep," he whispered. "Not every sound is for us." Amara nodded, closing her eyes, and for the first time in many nights, the children drifted into dreams without fear or giggles. Outside, the wind rustled through the mango leaves, the crickets sang, and the quiet pulse of family life continued. The scandal had passed, but the lesson remained carved deep. Even in the smallest houses with the thinnest walls, respect is the strongest roof. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please share your thoughts and tell us what you learned in the comment box. We would truly love to read them. And guess what? Another powerful story is coming your way in just a few days. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel, turn on your notification bell, and hit the like button. Most importantly, share this story with your family and friends. Thank you so much for watching.